Hello folks, today we're going to learn about density. So what is density? I like to think about it as a measure of how compacted the particles of an object are. So for most substances, the solid state has a much higher density than the liquid state, and the liquid state has a higher density than the gas, because the particles are so much closer to each other. You could also think about density as a measure of how much mass there is in a certain amount of volume of a substance. One of the most basic and honestly most fun uses for density is to determine whether objects will sink or float in a certain liquid. So if the object's density is greater than the liquid's density, the object will sink, and if it's less than the density of the liquid, it'll float. When we measure mass, we could use a number of different units. For density, we will stick with the gram. There's also a number of units we could use to measure volume, but we'll be using the milliliter. Fun fact, 1 milliliter is exactly equal to 1 cubic centimeter, otherwise known as a cc. So we're going to use the milliliter and the cubic centimeter for our volume unit, and we can use those interchangeably. Finally, since you know that density is mass per volume, you can put these units together to obtain the density unit, which is grams per cubic centimeter, or grams per milliliter. Now that we know the unit for density, let's look at some examples. If we have a container of water whose density is 1 gram per cubic centimeter, we can place various items in the water to see if their densities are greater or less than the density of water. So if we put a piece of wood in the water with a density of 0.74, would you expect it to sink or float? Well, hopefully it's going to float since its density is less than the water. An aluminum can whose density is 2.7 would definitely sink because its density is greater than water's. Corn syrup would also sink with a density of 1.33. A rubber band clocking in at 1.52 grams per cubic centimeter would also sink to the bottom of the water. And steel with a density of 8.05 would sink very quickly to the bottom. Finally, vegetable oil, which has a density of 0.91, just under 1, would float because its density, while not much less, is still less than the water's density. Again, density is mass per unit volume. So to mathematically determine density, all you have to do is take the mass and divide it by the volume. So you'll have a sample of a certain substance, you'll find the mass, you'll find the volume, divide the two. There's 3 different equations you could use for this. There's d equals m divided by v, m equals d times v, and v equals m over d. Well, now that you know the equations, let's go through a few practice problems. The first question says that you have a sample of an unknown substance whose mass is 40 grams and volume is 50 cubic centimeters. So what is its density? The first step to any word problem is to write down what you know. So you know that the equation for density, d equals, is m over v. You know the mass is 40 grams. And you know the volume is 50 cubic centimeters. So now all you have to do is plug and check. So if d equals m over v, that's the same as 40 grams over 50 centimeters cubed. And when you divide 40 by 50, you get 0.8 grams per centimeter cubed. The next practice problem says that you have a 10 cubic centimeter sample of aluminum whose density you know is 2.7 grams per centimeter cubed. And it asks you to find the mass. So again, write down what you know. If you're looking for mass, use the equation that says m equals, in this case, m equals d times v. You know the density is equal to 2.7 grams per centimeter cubed, and the volume is 10 centimeters cubed. So now, again, just plug and check. M equals dv, that's 2.7 grams per centimeter cubed, times 10 centimeter cubed. Notice you have centimeters cubed on top and centimeters cubed on bottom. That cancels out, and you're left with grams, and that gives you a total of 27.0 grams. Our final practice problem involves a sample of vegetable oil whose density is 0.91 grams per centimeter cubed. And it says your mass is 91 grams. And it asks you to find the volume. So again, write down what you know. Volume is equal to the mass divided by the density. your mass is equal to 91 grams. Your density is equal to 0.91 grams per centimeter cubed. Plug and chug, you get 91 grams divided by 0.91 grams per centimeter cubed. Notice we have grams on top, grams on bottom, and the centimeter cubed moves up to the top, and that's the unit we'll be left with. And 91 divided by 0.91 is 100 centimeters cubed.